The car came out of nowhere. I didn't think I shoved my grandson behind me and took the hit myself. When I opened my eyes, I was in a hospital bed, ribs crushed, spine fractured, but the worst pain wasn't in my body. It was in the way. My daughter looked at me like I was a burden, like saving her child was an inconvenience. And that's when I knew I had given everything to a family that only saw me as useful, not loved, not needed, just used. Oliver was 5. He was talking about dinosaurs when it happened. We were walking together, his tiny hand in mine, when the car lost control. I didn't scream. I didn't think, I just acted. I yanked him behind me and stood between him and the speeding metal. The sound of the crash was strange, distant, muffled, like hearing it from underwater. Then everything went dark. I woke up under fluorescent lights. My body felt wrong, like it had been broken and glued back together. The wrong way. Machines beeped around me. And somewhere through the haze of painkillers, I heard her, Jessica, my daughter. But she wasn't speaking to me. She was speaking to Patricia, Mark's mother, my son-in-law's mother, the woman who never liked me. Mom's always been careless like this, Jessica said. I'm so sorry, Patricia. And Patricia. She looked down at me with disgust. If my grandson had been seriously hurt, she said, I would have sued her. What kind of grandmother puts a child in danger? Not a word of concern. Not a thank you. Just blame. Then the doctor walked in. His voice was calm but urgent. She has internal bleeding and multiple fractured vertebrae. He said, we need to operate immediately. Jessica finally looked at me, but there was no fear in her eyes, just annoyance. Mom, how could you be so reckless? She said. What are we supposed to do now? As they rolled me away, I saw her take Patricia's hand. She didn't touch mine, didn't say she loved me. She comforted Patricia while I was being taken into surgery. That's when something shifted in me. Not a physical break, something deeper. I had lived in Jessica's home for 3 years. I cooked their meals, took care of their son, covered their expenses, left my husband, left my home, because she said she couldn't do it alone. But now, lying in that hospital bed, forgotten and blamed, I realized the truth. I wasn't a mother to them. I was the help. Free labor, a convenience. And for the first time in years, one thought came clearly. It's time I remembered who I used to be. I woke up to the steady beep of machines and the distant hum of a hospital corridor. The room was quiet, too quiet. No flowers, no cards. Just a stranger in the next bed, watching me with tired, kind eyes. You've been out for almost a day, she said softly. Your daughter stopped by. She was with an older woman. They didn't stay long. The older one said something about her blood pressure. That would have been Patricia, of course, always inconvenienced. I tried to shift in bed, but pain shot through my back and leg. A doctor entered not long after, flipping through a chart. You've suffered a spinal injury, he said gently. We repaired it surgically. There's also a fractured femur. You'll need 6 to 8 weeks in rehab after discharge, and at least 6 months of physical therapy. It's going to be a long process. I nodded, even though the truth hit harder than his words. I wouldn't be walking out of here on my own for a very long time. Maybe not at all. And yet what hurt more was that no one stayed to hear those words with me. Jessica came back later that day. Not alone. Mark walked in behind her and dropped a stack of papers onto my tray table, with the grace of a man delivering a bill, not visiting a loved one. These are the hospital bills we've covered so far. $12,500, he said flatly. You'll need to reimburse us. No. How are you feeling? No thank you for protecting our son. Just numbers, just expectations. Jessica didn't object, didn't flinch. She simply added, Mom, you know we're struggling. The mortgage, Patricia's medication. We've taken on so much already. Mark cut in. And now we have to figure out daycare for Oliver. That's not cheap. I could barely move. But even in that state, I felt the heat rising in my chest. The nurse beside me paused, clearly stunned. She glanced at me like she wanted to say something, but she didn't. She tightened the IV line and walked out without a word. Later that evening, Patricia arrived with a paper bag. No smile, no warmth, just duty. I brought you something, she said, placing a sandwich on the tray. Plain white bread mustard. It's what I ate when I had surgery. Should be fine for you. I looked at the sad sandwich Jessica had once called me, crying, telling me how Patricia forced her to eat that same meal every day during pregnancy. And now, here it was again, offered like a gift. Actually, I said quietly, patients recovering from surgery need protein and nutrients. This isn't really suitable. Patricia's face hardened instantly. Ungrateful as always. We go out of our way to help you and you complain. Jessica crossed her arms. Mom, you're making things difficult again. That word again landed hard. I looked at her. Really looked. 3 years of cooking, cleaning, raising her child, and pouring my retirement into their household. 3 years of leaving behind my marriage, my own home, my own peace. And this is what I got in return. I took a breath. My voice shook, but I didn't care. Jessica, when was the last time you asked if I was tired? When did you thank me for anything? For 16-hour days watching your son, for buying your groceries with my savings, for giving up my life so you could keep yours. Her cheeks flushed. That's not fair. We gave you a place to live. No, I cut her off. I gave you everything, and you used me. She didn't respond, just stood there, arms folded, lips pressed together like Patricia's. And that's when I knew I was done asking for their kindness, done hoping for gratitude. This wasn't my home anymore. It never really was. The call came the next morning. His voice, Thomas's voice, felt like oxygen after weeks underwater. Eleanor, he said softly, I'm coming to get you. It's time to come home. I closed my eyes, and the tears came fast. Not from pain, not from guilt. From the simple, overwhelming sense that someone somewhere still saw me. Yes, I whispered, it's time. And suddenly, everything fell into place. Not just the decision, but the weight I'd been carrying for years. It wasn't just about the accident. This had been building slowly. Years of small cuts, quiet sacrifices, and feeling invisible in a house where I was needed, but never truly seen. I thought back to how Jessica first pulled me into her world again. She'd called 2 weeks after Oliver was born, sobbing on the phone. Mom, I can't do this alone. She'd said, Mark's working nonstop. Patricia's criticizing everything I do. I need help, just for a little while. Just for a little while. That was 3 years ago. Every time I mentioned going back home to Thomas, she had a reason for me to stay. The baby had colic, Mark was traveling, she was overwhelmed, depressed. There was always a reason why I had to give up more. And I did, again and again. Until now. That afternoon, Jessica walked into my hospital room with her usual tight smile, clutching her phone like it was armor. Mom, she said, we need to talk about what happens next. You'll need help during recovery, and She hesitated. We still need help with Oliver. I looked at her and felt something shift. Not anger, not even sadness. Clarity. My decision's made, I said quietly. I'm going home with your father. Her expression cracked. What? No. That's not possible. We need you here. I'm not coming back. She leaned in, lowering her voice into a sharp whisper. If you walk away now, after everything we've done for you, don't expect to come back, and I'll need your pension card. At least leave us that. I almost laughed. I'd just come out of surgery. My body still held together by stitches and pins, and she was worried about my pension. "Is that really what matters to you?" I asked. "My money." Her jaw tightened. "It's the least you can do." I reached for my purse. My hand shook not from fear, but from resolve. I pulled out the card and placed it in her palm. "Take it," I said. "But just know you've shown me exactly who you are, and I won't forget it." She stared at me, maybe waiting for me to soften, to take it back, but I didn't. She walked out, and I never saw her the same way again. Thomas didn't ask questions when he arrived. He just walked in with quiet purpose, kissed my forehead, and said, "Let's get you home." His hands, calloused from decades of construction work, were unexpectedly gentle as he helped me into the wheelchair. Not a single sigh, not a single complaint. In the car, he didn't press me for answers. He just drove steady and calm, letting the silence stretch between us like something sacred. When we pulled up to the house, I almost didn't recognize it. The lawn was trimmed, the porch swept clean, and the walkway had been widened. Inside, it felt like someone had been waiting. The bathroom had grab bars and a walk-in shower. His old office was now a bedroom on the first floor. My new room, the doorways were wider. A recliner with electronic controls sat where his favorite chair used to be. "How long have you been doing all this?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Thomas looked at me a little embarrassed. "About 2 years ago, I started calling Jessica. Just to check in. She always said you were too tired to talk or too busy, but something felt off." He opened a drawer and pulled out brochures, rehabilitation centers. Home nurse agencies printed lists of physical therapists. Some were months old, others years. "I didn't know when you'd come back," he said quietly, "but I wanted everything to be ready if you did." I didn't know what to say, so I didn't say anything. I just cried. That night, for the first time in years, I slept without feeling like I owed someone something. No guilt, no tension, no schedule to follow, just peace. As we lay in bed, Thomas asked softly, "What now?" I stared at the ceiling for a long moment. Then I said, "Remember how we used to talk about moving to Oregon, that little town by the coast?" He smiled, Cannon Beach. "You always loved it there." "Let's do it," I said. "Sell this house, buy something small near the ocean, start over." He didn't even hesitate. Instead, he reached into the nightstand and pulled out a folder. Inside were real estate listings, tax documents, and notes about hospitals in the area. Some of them were dated from over a year ago. "I've been researching," he said with a small shrug. "Every time you sounded more tired, more distant." I added to the file. I even talked to a realtor. I looked at him, and for the first time in a long time, I felt chosen. Not needed, not used. Chosen. "But what about Jessica?" he asked gently. "And Oliver." I closed my eyes. The ache was still there. Of course it was. "I love them," I said. "But sometimes loving someone means letting them live with the consequences of their choices." Jessica had made hers. The first call came a week later. Jessica's voice on the other end was no longer cold. It was frantic. "Mom," she said. "The pension card? It's not working. Did you cancel it?" I didn't answer right away. Then Mark called. "No panic there, just anger. You think you can just walk away and leave us with your bills? We covered your surgery. We'll take legal action if we have to." And finally, Patricia left a voicemail so sharp it could slice through glass. "You're a disgrace," she snapped. "You owe this family. Don't think you can run from your responsibility." We changed our numbers that afternoon, but that didn't stop the past from trying to find us. Recovery wasn't easy. It was slow, painful, and often humiliating. 3 times a week, a physical therapist named Marisa came to the house. She was patient-firm and unrelenting. Some days I cried from frustration. Some days I didn't want to move at all. But every time I wanted to give up, I thought of that hospital room, of Jessica's face. of the way she reached for Patricia's hand instead of mine. That memory became my fuel. 4 months in, I took my first unaided steps across the living room. Marisa smiled and said, "You're ahead of schedule. Most people take longer to get here." Thomas recorded every milestone in a leather-bound journal. The first time I dressed myself again, the day I walked to the mailbox, the night I made it up 3 stairs on my own. They were small things, but each one felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. 6 months after I came home, we sold the house. It only took a few days on the market. And just like that, we were standing in front of a little cottage in Cannon Beach, Oregon, with a view of the ocean and the salt in the air. It was quiet, clean, safe. I was healing. Not just physically, emotionally. But then came the videos. A neighbor from Colorado called. She sounded uncomfortable. "Eleanor, I think you should see this." Jessica had gone viral. In the video, she sat on a worn-out couch, eyes puffy, voice trembling. She told the internet I had abandoned her, said I'd left her and Oliver with nothing, said I'd forced her into marriage, then disappeared when she needed help the most. There were photos of Oliver in a messy apartment, links to donation pages, thousands of dollars raised by strangers who believed every word. The comments were brutal. "What kind of mother does this boomer's have no soul? She deserves nothing." Thomas was livid. "I'm driving back," he said. "I don't care what it takes." But I stopped him. "Let them have their version." I said, "We know the truth, but apparently the universe wanted the truth out too." A former co-worker of mine, someone I hadn't spoken to in years, recognized Jessica's face in one of the videos. She messaged me with screenshots, donation links, fake claims, lie after lie. That night, I sat in front of a camera. No makeup, no lighting, no performance, just truth. I told the story. 3 years of unpaid labor, of watching their child, of paying their bills, of taking a car for Oliver, and waking up in a hospital bed and being asked for reimbursement before I could walk again. I gave everything to my daughter, I said, and she saw me as nothing but a resource, a convenience. At 62, I've learned something hard but necessary. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away. The response, it was overwhelming. People listened. People believed me. Because the truth doesn't need polish. It just needs to be told. It happened while we were gone for the weekend, just 2 days away. A quiet little trip up the coast, fresh air, saltwater silence. When we came back, the front door wouldn't open. At first, I thought I'd forgotten the keys. But no, the lock had been changed. Thomas tried again, jiggled the handle, knocked nothing. Then the curtain moved, and there, standing in our living room window, was Jessica. She opened the door like nothing was wrong, like we were the guests, like we were intruding. Inside the scene was surreal. Mark was on the sofa, feet up like he owned it. Patricia was in the kitchen, my kitchen digging through the fridge. Oliver sat on the floor with his tablet wearing one of Thomas's old sweatshirts. Our clothes, our food, our home, gone. "You owe us," Mark said casually, not even getting up. "This is just the beginning of what you need to pay back." I stood frozen. Thomas didn't. He pulled out his phone and dialed police. He said calmly, "We've had a break-in." Jessica's face changed instantly. "You're calling the cops on your own daughter." "No, I said I'm calling them on trespassers." It hurt to say it. God, it hurt. But it was the truth. 10 minutes later, the police arrived. Mark tried to argue. Patricia yelled. But none of it mattered. The facts were clear. New locks, no permission. Stolen property. Mark and Patricia were handcuffed, escorted out. Jessica stood there, holding Oliver, her eyes wide with disbelief. "They're arresting us," she whispered. "No," the officer replied, "them not you, not the child." She was allowed to leave with a warning. As they walked down the path, Oliver turned around, his little face confused, innocent. "Grandma," he called. My chest cracked wide open. I wanted to run to him, to hold him, to say this wasn't his fault. But I didn't. Because this was the path his parents had chosen? Not me. Thomas closed the door behind them, locked it, double-bolted it. And then we stood there in our own home, trying to breathe in the quiet again. The aftermath wasn't neat. Mark lost his job when news of the arrest hit his workplace. Jessica's social media accounts were flagged for fraud. The donation links disappeared. The sympathy dried up. Then came the charges breaking and entering theft harassment. We didn't attend the court hearings. We didn't need to. We were already gone. We moved again, this time to a quiet town on the Washington coast, smaller, quieter, even more removed, a place where no one knew our names, no one whispered behind our backs, no one asked for anything. We changed our phone numbers, our email addresses, even our last name at least on the mailbox. For the first time in years, there was no knock at the door, no expectation, no debt hanging over our heads. Just life. Most evenings we sat on the porch and watched the ocean. Sometimes we talked, sometimes we didn't. Healing doesn't always look like joy. Sometimes it looks like silence, like deep sleep, like breathing without bracing yourself. Thomas asked me once, as we watched the sun disappear beneath the waves, "Do you regret it, walking away?" I thought about it. Really thought. I regret that Jessica became someone I don't recognize. I said I regret that Oliver is caught in the middle, but I don't regret saving myself. He nodded, took my hand, and didn't say another word. He didn't have to. A year passed. Then 2. We traveled nothing grand, just places we'd always talked about, but never made time for. We volunteered at the local library. I started painting again, seascapes mostly, and once a portrait of a little boy looking out over the waves. Thomas took up woodworking, making bowls and spoons from driftwood, like a man finally at peace with the pace of things. On my 65th birthday, he handed me a small wooden box. Inside was a journal bound in soft leather blank. "For your story," he said, "all of it, the pain and the joy." That night, I wrote my first words, not for Jessica, not for the world, for me. To make sense of how I got here. To honor every version of myself, I had to let go. To remember the woman I became when no one else was watching. We never heard from Jessica again. No letters, no calls. Sometimes I wonder about Oliver. I hope he grows up kind. I hope he learns to see people for who they are, not just what they give. But I've learned something now, something no one ever taught me in all those years of giving and giving and giving. Sometimes love means letting go. And sometimes walking away isn't the end of love. It's the beginning of loving yourself,